And welcome to the City of Morro Bay Public Works Advisory Board meeting of Wednesday, September 16, 2020. This is being held via teleconference. All members, with the exception of Chris Erlandson, are present, so we do have a quorum. Are there any announcements that the board members or presentations that the board members would like to make at this time? If none, then we will move to public comment. Public comment, this is for items that are not on the agenda. So if you have a general public comment for the Public Works Board, this would be the time to do it. You can either click on the link, you can raise your hand if you are on the Zoom meeting, and if you're on the telephone, then you would press *9 to raise your hand. And we'll give a moment or two for people to raise their hand. And Zeke, let me know if anybody has done that.
Yes, Mr. Chair, there is nobody in the queue at this time with their hand raised. Okay. With that, we will close public comment period at this time. There is nothing on item A, consent agenda, so we will move to business item B1, the director's report. And I'd like to mention to the members that if you are not speaking or presenting at the time, please mute your microphone. It reduces the background noise. So take it away for the director's report.
Thank you, and good evening, everybody. Sorry I couldn't join you last month for the meeting, but I think Rob handled that for me. A couple of things before we get into the director's report. I wanted to acknowledge Matt Bishop. He's on online with us today too. He is our in our consolidated maintenance supervisor in the field, and he has been attending the classwork with the Maintenance Superintendent Association, and he recently received his Public Works Inspection certification as part of the Public Works Specialist program. So just wanted to acknowledge him, and he's continuing on through the various grades and certifications in that program. So great work for him. And also Joe Miller, who's on with us. Joe just received his Advanced Water Treatment Grade 5, and he is one of 2 people in the entire state with that certification. So wanted to acknowledge both of them and their hard work in completing their studies and completing their coursework in both of those fields. We've been doing a lot of work in Public Works departments in all areas, from working on the Tidelands Pocket Park to continually addressing the trash and restroom needs because of our tourism, while keeping up with streets and tree trimming and permitting in the engineering division in our grant application for transit. So like I did before, I prefer you to hear directly from the people doing the work. I think it's nice to hear from them. So I'll ask Matt and Joe and Rob and Damaris and Janine to kind of go through their sections. And if you have any questions, we'll kind of do a high-level review. So if you have any questions, feel free to stop. And with that, Matt, if you don't mind to start off and tell what you and your crews have been doing down there. And again, congrats, buddy. That's great job on your certification.
Well, good evening, everyone. Matt Bishop here, Maintenance Supervisor. Thanks, Jen, for that. Really appreciate the acknowledgement. It is a great program. That MSA is Maintenance Superintendents Association. They have a lot of good stuff going on. So really, hats off to that whole association. A little recap on some of the things that you're looking at on the director's report from Consolidated Maintenance. We have, again, more hats off to the trash heroes shown on the pictures, working through day and night, really taking care of a lot of a lot of the tourism that, the trash that comes up from the tourism and also local traffic that we've had. It's been something else this year, as most of everyone's seen. But the staff has done a great job with placing receptacles in certain areas that are necessary, and I think we've done a fairly good job rather from the impact that we've had. So Trash Heroes there are pictured along with the banners, and Jen, with all the work you've done, thank you for that. That really did help locate all those areas. So I think that was a very smart move. Moving on, the fire station, we've got a picture there showing the maintenance division installed a custom aluminum channeled security window there. We had to go in and fit that in there and make it look like it was original to the building. So that was nice. Has a deal tray and a speaker hole.
Pardon me, Matt. Are you showing a presentation right now? Do you have a PowerPoint?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a PowerPoint?
Oh, no, I'm actually just showing I'm talking about the pictures presented on the director's report.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. Janine, do you have ability to share screen? Sorry, Matt, we didn't share the.
Oh, it's okay.
You want me to bring up the director's report?
Would the committee like to see that, or are you okay following along verbally?
Well, you can pull up the director's report in a split screen on your computer screen, if that helps.
See if I can.
Just tell us, Matt, what page you're on. Are you on page 3 of?
I'm sorry. I am on page 3. I apologize.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm just going down the list of some of the larger projects that have been accomplished the last 3 to 4 weeks. If that's okay you want me to continue on?
That's fine with me.
Okay. Again, so that was the security window was installed at the fire station. We did install at the harbor restrooms a new men's urinal there, as you see, and a lot of repairs were done out in the field. Shasta Street had a large hot mix road patch that we completed, along with several berms around that area that needed to be, polished up and actually repaired. So that's it for, the bullet points. I did want to comment on, Mr. Irwin had asked about the weeding along Main Street there. And I did want to say that it is on our schedule to do here. It has been on our schedule since we last talked. The flagging and traffic control has been completed for that. That's a flagging operation. So for the safety of the crew, this last week it's been real foggy in the mornings out there, which we had planned on getting out there, and then we got pulled in for some of those smoky days. So we've been doing a lot of inside work for those smoky days, and there was only a few of those that were pretty hazardous. But we again, that's coming up on that'll be here in the near future. So I just wanted to touch on that one.
Thank you, Matt. The funny thing was the day after our last PWAB, a guy came to me and complained about, he didn't know who I was. He was just mad because it was hard for him to ride his bike on that lane, and he was just complaining to the world. So it can be an issue. And I also saw an older woman about, say, 45 trying to ride a bike down it, and she ended up just going in the traffic lane because it was easier. So, that's the issue I've been seeing with that bike lane.
Yeah, and if when we do get out there here in the near future, it'll be within the next few weeks. I'm hoping, trying to get that scheduled again for next week in the morning. Seems to be a little less traffic, right? So, for the safety of the staff, we will have flaggers out there. I just want to let the public know that there's just going to be one lane operable, and the other lane will be stopped until traffic is cleared on the oncoming. So we'll have the one lane working flagging operation for the safety of the crew to have the lane being used clear for them. So it's pretty tight out there on that shoulder. So we're going to take up most of that lane, the southbound.
maybe have a discussion with Rob and say, whenever you guys go restripe North Main, think about what sort of modifications you do to it so people can use it, and if there's a like a weed growing out of the fence there, it doesn't block stuff.
Great.
Okay.
Noted. Thank you.
This is Doug. Can I make a comment on Matt's report, please?
Go right ahead.
Just on page 3, the trash receptacle photos.
Yes.
This ties in. Last month I asked about, the seagulls are making a big mess, up near McDonald's, seagulls get in the trash, they pull everything out looking for a French fry. You guys know that too, down the Embarcadero. The seagulls are a problem. Anyway, Jeff Heller told me he went and bought a couple of those trash things for like $110 or something with the top on it, which is a seagull prevention deal. And I just, how many of those things did you put out? Because it seems to me we definitely need more of those because of the seagull problem. So I'd like to, hear how did you guys come up with apparently the city bought like 4 or 5 of them, and Jeff apparently bought 1 or 2. Could you comment on that?
Sure. I believe we ended up putting out 5 more of the trash cans. Was it, Jen? Oh, no, that was the recycle bins. And then 3 more of the trash cans. Is that correct, Jen?
Yeah, so Councilmember Heller and a couple other citizens, I believe, donated one of the recycling cans. We put that out. We were concerned if people would actually use it for recycling or not, but it appeared to be successful, so we purchased, I believe it was 5 more, it might have been 4 recycling cans and 3 additional trash cans, and lined them up throughout over by the south side of the pit lot, the small lot on the other side of the pedestrian bridge, put a couple there, and then along the waterfront to help with the collection. And they do seem to be working pretty well, and they are seagull proof. As long as people put their trash in it and not next to it.
Yeah. Is there any way to get a seagull kind of thing on top of the cement trash deals, like what's up near, the drugstore near McDonald's? Because the seagulls definitely work that parking lot and make a big mess. And, I know that we have cement trash receptacles, but we got to keep the seagulls out of there.
Yeah, those are on private property, so we're not maintaining those trash cans, at least in front of the grocery store.
Yeah. Oh, man.
We could have a conversation with them, but those are.
I think what Doug was trying to say is that the style of trash can is better than the style that we have. They have things that overhang. Is that right, Doug?
Well, I guess those are like Rubbermaid things we see in Matt's photo. And, obviously they're not quite the same diameter as the cement ones. Okay, that's on private property. But there's also down on the Embarcadero, along, near, where the big ice machine is, the seagulls are just relentless. So I'm just kind of wondering, is there any way to retrofit? And yeah, I guess maybe you have to have a conversation with the landowners, but it's just an issue, and I just want to know what we can do about it.
Yeah, I think I appreciate the comments. We definitely have to think of a longer term solution for our trash issues. Maybe it's moving more towards a pack in, pack out mentality. The Rubbermaid ones, and that is what they are, really is designed to be a temporary assistance, and we can easily remove them after the tourist season dies down, and put them back out as we need to. Do hear your concerns about the seagulls with the cement ones. When they're not up to capacity, they're pretty effective against the seagulls, but as soon as the trash reaches the top, the birds can get in there. So that's an ongoing conversation that we're having internally with the direction we need to go with trash and how to help mitigate the litter and the trash around the community.
I imagine the private property owners are required to maintain sanitary conditions, especially in retail areas. So, you got quite a hammer for them if you choose to use it.
Matt, I'd like to add on to something on the bike lane there along Main Street and the highway north of 41 on Main Street. I noticed besides, weeds that come through the fence, a lot of the dirt from the highway, which is higher up, has eroded down into the bike lane over the curb, and it's pretty much, filled a lot of that space, the drainage space. Is that something that would be cleaned at the same time that the weeds would be whacked out of those areas? Because people, bicycle around the dirt areas into the traffic lane.
So we will plan on blowing that section once we clear the weeds. If it becomes too much for the blowers to handle, we can put a sweeper attachment on one of our tractors and really do a number on that area. The problem that that causes sometimes is you take away some of that slough, we call it, and then there's no brace for the rest of it to just avalanche down in there. So depending on the severity of that slough off area, we can certainly look at that a little closer while we're out there. So
this is dirt that's coming over the asphalt curb. So the curb, which would normally be 4 or 5 inches, is no longer there. It's all sloughed in. So it's filled in. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll address that when we're out there. And I know that the terrain changes. There's a portion of it where it widens, and it obviously there's a big incline on some of the North Morro Bay area, whereas you get closer to the opener more open spots of 41, and it seems to be a little flatter. But as you go north, it just gets a little higher of an incline. So we will look at all that while we're out there and do the best we can with widening, just like we did when we followed Greenville around at South Bay Boulevard. Greenville was in their bucket trucks trimming the willows, and we were back behind them taking advantage of the traffic control, clearing out as far as we could off the bike lane. So we'll do the best we can with whatever needs to be done.
Thank you.
Has anyone contacted Caltrans about maintaining their area, the right of way, so it doesn't impact our bicycles?
So just commenting on that, it was probably about a week after our last meeting, I drove the site to see what all was involved with our gear, and they were out there doing a number on that. So I felt that they were going to continue doing the good job that they were doing, and I'm hoping that they continue, because there still are some areas that need attention that they didn't come over quite far enough, but they did a good job with some of those areas out on their end. Yeah. So no, I haven't contacted them because I just saw them out there.
Good deal.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, if we work together, we can make some good stuff happen. Because a lot of those weeds from the highway side come in through the fence, and we're just going to take a hedger and knock those down. But, they're going to have to maintain that area on their side as well. You bet.
Jennifer, who do you have next?
I'll jump in there. Joe Miller, the Utilities Division Manager. So I'll start on page 4. Water operations, what we've been doing in the water department. First, I want to highlight a new piece of equipment that the Utilities Department got. It's a GPS logging device. So essentially, we've been going through the town and locating different water valves to that isolate the system and logging it directly on the maps with the GPS coordinates. It's a very powerful tool. It updates and coordinates directly with our maps. And when we have water leaks and stuff, we can actually, cite the coordinates of the line when we dig it up, where it is in the street and where we patch it. So again, very powerful tool, works really well. Once we started in the water department locating all our assets, we'll move on to the collections department afterwards. But the biggest advantage of this is an after-hour call-out. So if we're looking for valves that are supposed to be there on a map, when we have GPS coordinates, we can actually even just pull it up directly on our phone, put in those coordinates, and it will take us right to where that valve is or right to where that manhole is. So it's really will help us, in emergency situations, locate directly where these assets are. So we got that piece of equipment a couple months ago, and we just started on this past month, and the crew's really excited to have that technology. Other aspect that we're dealing with in on the water side is we're still decommissioning the old seawater RO facility. There's a few pictures on page 5 that you can see where we're refinishing the concrete floor. Those are where some of the big pressure pumps used to be. So we pulled out the pressure pumps and I had to jackhammer the slab out and re-pour to get it flush. But we do have a nice large indoor building as an asset for the utilities department to store equipment and stuff in now. The other avenue that we've been preparing for is state water shutdown. State water shutdown typically happens in October. So you can see the top picture on the left-hand side there is where we actually rebuilt all the motors on our brackish water RO system that's used when state water's down, and we pull the groundwater out of the Morro Basin wells and treat it for nitrate. So each one of those trains, a train is what you see in the background, those big white tubes, have 2 motors on. We rebuilt all 4. Well, we had to replace 1 motor and rebuilt the other 3. And currently, it's not listed in this report, but currently staff is replacing all those filter elements that are in those long tubes. The system's been in service about 9 years, and typical life expectancy on those filters are anywhere between 4 and 10 years. So we definitely got our life out of them. I do hear quite a few comments going, well, you only run it 1 month out of the year, it's like, how come we didn't get, times 4, right? We should have got a lot more or use out of it than the time. It's actually harder on these filter systems and motors to run 1 month out of the year than to run basically continuous. These systems are designed to run 24/7, and when they sit idle for long periods of time, it's actually very hard on the equipment. And talking with the manufacturers, they've definitely said we got our use out of them, and they were actually surprised at the life that we got out of the system. So it's been going really well over there with the replacement, and everything's on track for staff to have the facility back up online in October for the state water shutdown. We're going to jump down to page 7 of your packet in the collections department. The collection guys have just been really doing their routine operations and maintenance, but this back in the month of August, we really relied on them a lot to actually assist in other areas, such as the demoing of the old seawater desal plant. You can see the picture there on the left-hand side. They actually spent almost a week removing all the filter media of a big pressure filter that's on side of that building, so we can actually remove it from site. So that pressure filter basically is obsolete. It will be removed as part of the desal seawater facility equipment. So they actually spent a lot of time. We actually did that in-house with staff, again, just about a week's worth of time and equipment that we had. But we did get bids to actually have that work done, and the bids ranged anywhere from $12,000 to $20,000. So we were able to accomplish that all in-house with existing staff. So definitely kudos to those guys. They spent long days on it and used a lot of ingenuity to get that done. So I'm really proud of that.
Ooh.
Going down to the wastewater side. Wastewater treatment, we're just really doing a lot of testing right now for the permits to get for the new treatment plant. We're actually doing a lot of not only what's coming into the treatment plant, so we could categorize, what we're seeing in our influent of this treatment plant, so we can predict what the new plant will see and the limits they'll have to remove, and stuff that we should be looking at for the source control program, which we brought to PWAB last month. So we're actually setting all those targets based on what we're seeing. So that work continues. We're continuously doing training to prepare for the new facility, but a lot of it right now is just making sure this facility continues to operate, for the next 2 years without any violations, and we keep moving forward and are ready for the new treatment plant at the end of 2022. So that's it for water collections and wastewater treatment. I'll take any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Joe. Are there any questions for Joe?
I'd just say it looks great, Joe, and that you rebuilt those motors and did a lot of the work yourself. That's really great. Congratulations. I appreciate it. One question, which is sort of off the wall, does anybody know what's going on Highway 1? They're drilling some holes in the highway out there. It might be a PG&E operation, but I thought it might be related to the new WRF or something like that. But is anything going on with that, or does anybody know what's going on with that?
I do not. Maybe Rob can jump in here if he has more information, but I do want to say thank you for the comments. I'm blessed with a very talented staff. They definitely have the ability to perform a lot of this in-house, and the city should be very grateful for the skills and the talents that these guys possess. They do a great job. So
yeah, it looks great. I mean, the rebuilds and stuff.
Tori, where on Highway 1 is that going on?
It's right underneath the big power lines down to the plant, the power plant. It's kind of that corridor. It's sort of the turn Highway 1 after the off-ramp to Main Street, and then further sort of southeast.
Yeah, I know where you're talking about now. Okay. So PG&E has a few facilities in that area. They have their old gas line that provided natural gas to the plant, and they sold that facility to the Southern California Gas Company. So they're in the process of, testing those lines, decommissioning their valving and control system that provided natural gas to the plant.
Yeah.
They'll be turning that high pressure gas facility over to the gas company. So that's part of it. And then further up the hill, they're in the process of replacing all the old tower structures with new monopole tower structures. So they're picking off, 1 or 2 of those a year to replace those structures. So the stuff closer to Main Street is decommissioning the PG&E gas facilities and getting ready to sell that to Southern California Gas.
Well, there's been today and maybe yesterday out on Highway 1 on the southeast bound lane. People have been on the highway surface putting holes in the surface of the highway, the slow lane. Some of us around where I live, I've gotten notification from PG&E saying that they're doing some kind of work this time this week or so, and to expect helicopter traffic and different noises and things like that. But I don't know if this is that job or just what, but there's some engineering going on the highway itself, on the surface of the highway. That's what I was really asking about.
There's quite a lot of activity going on for the WRF project. We have our archaeologist out there doing core sampling to define the limits of the project so that we don't influence any archaeological sites. So they're doing coring in the shoulder of the ramp area. Where they're working. So small diameter cores they're taking, and then those cores get inspected by archaeologists and Native American representatives. But like I said, PG&E is doing decommissioning. We're doing coring work for the pipeline project, and we have the PG&E helicopters are probably for the tower replacement, because they've been placing some of the superstructure of those towers via helicopter.
Yeah. Okay. And maybe it was just a Caltrans crew doing some kind of retrofit or something. I don't know, but okay.
That's
thanks.
Always possible. Caltrans is busy as ever.
Yeah.
So,
thanks.
Rob, when PG&E places those replaces their new towers, are they going to be taking the old ones down?
Yes. So their replacement of the old kind of superstructure truss towers with monopole towers. So they're doing. Seems like you're doing one or two a year.
It's very slow, because I'm thinking it's beginning to look like a forest of towers on the hill.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then I have a question. Thank you. I have a question for Joe. This has been asked. I think I've asked this before and it's been answered before, but for some reason it keeps coming around in my mind. When you move the dry sludge from the drying beds to a sludge storage area, what do you do with the sludge? You can't just keep it, the dry sludge. You can't just keep it there forever. And also, is that process something you still need to do at the new plant?
So we actually remove the sludge from the sludge drying beds. Sludge storing area is just a concrete bunker that we pile it up and store it and have it trucked off once a year.
Where does it go?
So it actually goes to a recycling facility that basically turns it into either alternative daily cover at a landfill. They can use it for ground fill, so it's actually fill material. So, and sometimes they compost it, utilize some of it as like a food source in a composting type facility. So we actually try and always haul it to a beneficial reuse facility, but we do bid it out to numerous different areas. So it does have the potential, if they'd be the lowest cost, to just go to a landfill and where they'd use it as alternative daily cover for the garbage. But the last few years, it actually has been going to a composting facility.
So there are places that want that. Will you still be having to, because I was under the impression that it was just hauled to Kern County or something and left there. Is that a process that still needs to be done on the new plant?
Yes. So different type of process though, but we still will generate sludge. So we'll generate sludge and process sludge approximately once a week through a mechanical means. So right now it's just laid out in solar drying beds, essentially, where the air dries the sludge. Now we'll actually be running the liquid sludge through a mechanical belt press, we'll add some polymers to it, and it will actually dewater the sludge to about 15% cake. it will be the consistency of making a mud pie or a mud ball. So it still has quite a bit of water in it. It's only 15%, but that will be hauled away every week from the site to either a composting facility or a landfill. Again, that will have to be competitively bid as we get closer to the commissioning date of the facility. So in contrast, the sludge that leaves this facility is about 85 to 90% solids, and we actually have to add water as we load it because otherwise we just create a big dust storm. So
okay,
big contrast, but definitely same byproduct that we're generating is the sludge.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Joe. Jennifer, who's next?
I have a question.
Yeah.
One more question from Doug.
Sorry, Doug Rogers. This may be a Jen question or a Joe question. I'm just concerned about the plant. There's 3 people running for city council that are kind of advocating not building it, and I'm hopeful that we're into this and it's going to happen no matter what. And I just want to hear a little reassurance that that's the case. Could you please comment?
Yeah, I guess I'll comment, and maybe Rob or Joe can add in at the end. You know, we're pretty far along. We have a contract signed with Oberlin for the construction. There's, ground has been broken. They're quite a long ways. I think everybody probably received a mailer recently with the postcard mailer with pictures of the progress that has been made. There would be quite a process to go through and break a contract since that has been signed. What we haven't signed yet is a contract for the pipeline. We're working on that internally now, and we'll bring that forward to council. I'm not sure of the exact timing of that. Ultimately, whatever happens with the election, then we'll have to work through the process there, but it would be quite costly to retract the project at this point. In addition to, it would jeopardize our WIFIA financing, and we'd likely have to pay back the grant money.
Of course. I just wanted to hear what you had to say about it, because it's definitely an issue in the coming election, and it's. I have not received that flyer, but I will look for it. But okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments before we move on? Okay, Jen, who's next? Damaris?
Damaris,
I can do mine. Sure. I'll go back to page 6 here and just give a quick update on the Pocket Park. So a couple weeks ago, some volunteers and myself did a bunch of planting out there. We got most of the planting all done. There's a few plants left. And Consolidated Maintenance came in and helped plant these larger cypress trees in the back. And also we got the irrigation put in, thanks to our Consolidated Maintenance as well. And this weekend, we will be adding about 10 yards of gorilla hair mulch to cover the whole surface there. And then we have a curved half semicircle bench that's being ordered to go into the back, and then this park will be done. So just wanted to give a quick update on that. If anyone has any questions with it. Otherwise, I think Janine or Rob has some updates.
Yeah, this is Doug again. Could you just comment a little bit on the storm water? Is it coming down that hill? I mean, where did the stormwater issue come from that required this?
So the stormwater comes from the street runoff. It comes from actually the boat wash area, and then it comes from a little bit of the Barcadero area. There's a small watershed that this water takes it in, cleans it. Okay. It goes into our under drain and then goes out. It used to go straight out to the bay, so now it gets cleaned before it goes out.
Okay, so it's not coming from the hill; it's from the Embarcadero and from the boat wash.
Correct. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Runoff.
Thank you.
I know, Tori, you have a question. If I could just add that, Damaris and her husband and family were out there volunteering to plant the plants out there. So I just want to acknowledge the extra effort. They did that on their free time and made a family project out of it. So really appreciate that, Damaris.
You're welcome. Thank you.
That's fantastic to hear. And it looks terrific, Damaris. I was there a few days ago for the first time and to see it, and it just looked really, really wonderful. I'm so happy to see that. By the way, I was swimming in the bay with Margaret and Greg, who regular open water swimmers, and Margaret runs the Morro Bay High School lap swim, public swim. I don't know if you know, if people there know that her, but anyway, she's great about that. But have you seen actual like for Labor Day weekend? Was there any use, so to speak, of the park where people were cleaning off their boats and detergent water was washing down into the sort of the swale that you created and was ecologically cleaning that water? Have you seen it being functioning?
Yeah, it has been functioning. It's been functioning since the day they opened that boat wash back up. That water goes right into it, soaks down in and gets cleaned, and it's been working great. Actually, I was really happy to see it work the very first time I went out there. So, and now with the plants in it, it'll help a lot more. So it's been working really well.
Cool. Well, it looks great. Fantastic. Great job.
All right. Then I guess I'll pass this to either Janine or Rob.
I think, Rob, I think you're up, and then Janine.
Hello, everybody, board members, viewing public. We'll go over the engineering capital projects and our development review workload. Start off with our Highway 41 Main Street project. It's still a financially constrained project, although council did authorize submission of about a $3.75 million grant application to Caltrans for the Active Transportation Program to help close the funding gap on the project. We did make the funding deadline of yesterday, submitted our application, although there was some issues with the Caltrans upload site. I don't think they anticipated the file sizes that were going to be submitted, but when they ask for all of your plans that you have so far, it creates quite the large file. We were able to work with Caltrans and get that submitted and make the deadline. GHD, our consultant on the project, is working on the PIED phase, the pre-design and environmental determination, and they're still on track to complete that this year. And we're still trying to close that funding gap, working with our funding partners. We'll be discussing pavement management in item B2, so I'll skip over that. The water system improvements from our One Water plan. We have it broken into basically for the One Water plan, two sets of projects. The water system improvements are centered around Nutmeg pressure zone, fire flow improvements, including a new tank. So Cannon is looking at publishing a draft environmental document this fall and providing us with a 30% design so that we can run that through the tank design through the county for a use permit and a coastal development permit. The other project is the collection system repairs that we'll be looking at doing in the system on the Atascadero Main sewer line, the Main Street sewer line, and Beachcomber. Those are three of our sections where we experience the highest I&I, or inflow and infiltration, from rainfall getting into the system and causing our flows to go up. We anticipate that design to be completed in spring of next year and ready to list by late spring, and construction commencing late summer, early fall. We had some small capital improvement projects, the North Point parking lot lighting project. We canceled that project due to the fund availability in the assessment district accumulation. There really are no funds available to do that work. And the homeowners association there is looking to perform that project and add a street light to the parking lot at the end of Toro Lane at North Point. As Damaris said, the Pocket Park boat rental station water quality project is substantially complete, and we'll be filing a notice of completion on that project. The Bocce Ball Greenhouse project at Shasta and Dunes was put on hold due to COVID restrictions and working with volunteers. And City Council is looking at all of their surplus property to perhaps look at a potential sale of some of that property. And this is included as one of those sites to evaluate. One of our assistant engineer, our only assistant engineer currently, had completed the design of the Cloisters landscaping improvements for the median and worked with the MATS crews in getting those that landscaping installed. Now they're just fine-tuning the irrigation system and dealing with a few of the plants that didn't quite survive. So getting account to those to let the nursery know and getting replacement plants. Our two storm drain projects in the Laurel Easement and on Sequoia Court have not had the resources available to work on those projects. Once we put a couple of these other projects to bed, we can jump back on those for design of spot repairs and either doing that work in-house. Should we be below the threshold for force account work, or putting those out to bid? Moving on from page 10 to page 11, our development review workload is remaining fairly steady. We have a few commercial projects, a couple of subdivisions that we're working on, and then many and various sundry either residential remodels or construction projects that were in review or in construction inspection. We did issue 20 kind of normal encroachment permits for construction activities, and through our new blanket encroachment permit program, where we allow businesses and to use the street right-of-way. We issued 5 of those blanket permits for various businesses to encroach either onto the sidewalk area or into the street ends on Embarcadero to allow them to have outdoor dining activities. And then in the case of the Fitness Works, they're using portions of the parks for some fitness activities, and we issued a blanket permit for that activity. That concludes the engineering capital, with the exception of the pavement management program and development review, and can answer any questions. Oh, one last item, sorry. The WRF project. We have, again, a screenshot from the project dashboard that's updated, not quite real time, but regularly updated, and the links there to the project website, and which includes fact sheets and this dashboard. We did receive 5 bids for the conveyance system, ranging from a parent low bid of about $31.5 million to the high bidder at a little over $42.5 million for installation of that conveyance system. We do have a contract provision in that bid that the contractors need to hold their price so we can award up to 90 days after receiving those bids, which will end on November 10th at that council meeting. That would be the latest we could award and still hold these prices. Our program management team is evaluating all their submittal documents and bid prices, and we are still waiting for clearance on property acquisition on the Vistra site or the old power plant site to be able to access that and not limit the contractor with the work they would do. So those are a couple of the things that are holding up award of this contract, but we have bid and contract provisions that allow a delayed award. Now I'm completed and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Jen?
It's a very simple question. This Harbor View Hotel at 205 Harbor Street, is that across the street from like Pleasant Inn? Is that vacant block there?
No, it's actually further down, kind of behind Fiona Blue at the corner of Front and Harbor.
On Fiona Blue side of the street?
On Fiona Blue side of the street. It's not a vacant piece of property. It's a multi residential type development there up on the hillside there.
Okay, it'll be up on the bluff.
Yeah. And into the bluff. That section of the bluff allows for development activities in the bluff face.
Is that bluff face, is that natural? That's not fill, is it? The fill is down on the flat?
I think it's, of course, there have been some grading activities there and fill of the bay. Embarcadero probably wasn't there at one point in time. It was likely the bay came in a little bit farther because there's revetment there and fill on top of that. But it is somewhat of a natural bluff area there.
It may have been graded.
Yes. And there was a retaining wall, I think, in the 90s. Some of the storms at that point in time caused a retaining wall failure at that location.
Is that the location where there was a swimming pool at one time?
That I don't know. I've heard, you mean the Morro Bay Plunge?
Yeah.
I believe that was on the other side of the Embarcadero from there. I believe that might have been on the bay side.
Oh, okay. That would make more sense. Okay.
But I would have to consult Morro Bay yesteryears to the publication to confirm that.
That's where I learned about it, and I guess I was in my mind. I was thinking it was on the land side of the harbor, but it makes more sense to be on the other side. Okay, thank you.
I have some questions too.
Sure.
Me too.
All right, who wants to go first? Rick?
Go ahead, John.
Okay. On these storm drain repair things, what happens if we don't get them done before the rainy season?
Well, the repairs that need to be done are generally in the bottom of the pipe, and they'll wash backfill out, and likely we'll see trench settlement and ultimately the street settlement there. Likely won't happen all at once. So we do have some time. We do plan on getting there and at least doing the most critical spot repairs where we saw the big failures, but these are old corrugated metal pipes that
don't exist anymore.
Much of the bottom doesn't exist anymore. The top is in perfect condition.
Okay, well that helps. Okay, I think I kind of asked this, but I'm curious. Of these 18 residential remodels and construction, how many trigger sidewalk and curb and gutter improvements?
They all trigger some sort of frontage improvements. In our residential zoning districts, R1 and R2 zoning, unless you're on an arterial or collector street, sidewalks are not required. So, and our frontage improvements allow for a AC dike as a perimeter improvement. So you may not see conventional, what you might see in other cities, the requirement for, vertical curb or even a rolled curb, a concrete curb. Our standards allow for AC dike.
Then how many of these residential remodels, constructions are on collector streets?
I don't have those details. Anecdotally, very few of them are on collector streets. They're mainly on residential local streets. If they are on collector streets, if it's over a 50% remodel or a new construction, they will require curb gutter sidewalk to be installed.
Okay. Let's see. And then I think you may have told me last time, is there a cost sharing clause on the WRF contract if they come in under budget?
We do have a value engineering clause in the contract to, if there's any cost savings, we share, we split it 50-50 with the contractor.
Okay, pretty typical then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of modeled after the Caltrans value engineering clause.
It also matches the Corps of Engineers too.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I'm done.
Corey, go ahead.
Okay, well, just on that same topic, in terms of the, did you say you had 6 bids for the injection system, Rob?
This is the conveyance system, so construction of the conveyance pipelines, the force main, and discharge, and the indirect potable line, and then the 2 pump stations.
Okay, conveyance system, right? Yeah. Okay, and there were 6 bids.
Five bids, ranging from 31, little over 31.4 million to 42.7 million.
Okay, and you mentioned that there was you've worked out a delayed award 90-day period where that price of the bid will be valid for 90 days after giving the award. Before starting.
Well, we specified that in the contract documents. So we have, after opening the bids, we have 90 days for council to award the bids. So that ends on November 10th. And then, of course, it's a conventional design bid build. So the contractors will hold those prices through the construction of the project.
Okay. So the 90 days ends in November.
Yes.
It doesn't start. Okay.
It doesn't start in November. No.
Okay. So, good. And so there's no, I was just interested in whether or not there was a ability for the contractor to index a cost overrun if construction doesn't start after a certain time. I thought that might have been part of this kind of contract, but apparently not, right?
No. Okay. The only increases in cost will be agreed to change orders. So
okay. And so there's no indexed automatic cost increase in these contracts. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
Not in this contract. In the WRF contract, there were provisions if we did not authorize, a notice to proceed by a certain date, it required us to negotiate a change order for cost delays.
Right, and that's what we went through in the last couple of months.
Yes.
With approximately, I forget the number now, but there was quite a substantial cost overrun penalty that we experienced.
Correct.
That's all I wanted to ask.
All right. Any other questions from board members?
Yeah. This is Doug Rogers. I have a question.
Hey, Doug.
Hi. Okay, on the collection system, the Beachcomber, as I understood, that is part of the WRF contract, what is now $131 million. Is that where the money's coming from for that?
No, it's a separate project from the WRF project. It's a capital project that was recommended through our One Water planning document, which was
yes,
kind of a master plan for our water and wastewater infrastructure. So
right.
It is not included in the WRF project costs, but it is included in the rate analysis. So we have, in addition to the WRF capital project, we have other capital projects that we're doing. Joe went over some of the smaller ones that are budgeted with the desal work that we're doing and other smaller capital projects. This is something that we will not be doing in-house. We have a consultant doing the design work, survey, and then we'll be bidding this for construction.
Okay, because I'm looking at the city budget that you have linked there on the bottom of that same page, and I see some sewer improvements, but that's up on Kern. So
yeah, there's a specific capital project for the Beachcomber sewer rehab work, and then also the Main Street and Atascadero Road work. And
so
I can
where can I find those items then? I mean, you're saying they're part of the rate analysis.
The rate study assumed a level of capital programming, and that was based on the One Water plan.
Yes,
I believe you have looked at that in the past. In the easiest place to find it is in the executive summary, where we discuss the first 5-year capital projects that we're doing and their nutmeg. I'll resend you the link to that and give you page numbers so that it'll be easy to find.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you. Excellent.
All right. Any additional questions from the board members? Thank you, staff, for all of that. We will take a moment to open this up for public comment if there are any public comments on this business item. If you wish to speak at public comment, then press the raise your hand symbol if you're on Zoom. And if you are on the telephone, then you would press *9 in order to raise your hand. And we'll let Zeke tell us if anyone has indicated that they would like to speak during this public comment on the director's report.
Mr. Chair, at this time, there is nobody in the queue that has their hands raised.
Thank you. Then we will close public comment on item B1. There's no action required by the board. We're just accepting the director's report. So now we'll move to B2, review of the update of the pavement management plan planning document. Rob, I believe you get this also.
Yeah, I had to unmute myself before I start talking. And I'm going to share my screen. This will be, let's see if I can do this. I know we have the technology here.
Also, as you move through the document, if you're able to indicate, page numbers so that people, if you start jumping, so that people can follow along where exactly, you're at. Thank you.
I'll be mainly using this PowerPoint presentation to go through the project and the the results of that work and some recommendations. So,
okay, then when we follow up, then board members will indicate page numbers if they have questions later. Thank you.
Perfect. So this is update of our 2011 pavement management plan. We contracted with Pavement Engineering out of San Luis Obispo to do a streets assessment and plan update. And I'm going to go through this presentation, and we're asking the board to provide us staff members as regarding some input regarding the plan itself and regarding future expenditures. Maybe start out with some basics. We'll go over what is a street system, what is our city street system, what is maintained, how it's funded, and what does it cost, why we do a pavement management plan, and then going over the pavement management plan and pavement management program. We'll also maybe see references to pavement management system. Most of the references are synonymous with each other, so we're going to move on here. The city street system is made up of about 53 and a half centerline miles of streets distributed between arterial streets, which on the exhibit can be seen in green, collector streets in kind of a magenta or purple colored, and the rest are considered residential or local streets. Our street system has a replacement value out there of about $145.5 million, and that's really just for that pavement asset. Doesn't include any of the storm drain infrastructure, street lighting, landscaping, and such. What do we maintain in the street system? Well, it's more than just the asphalt pavement and the substructure, the base and subbase. Asphalt berms and curbs and gutters, sidewalks, striping and pavement markings, regulatory signs, storm drainage, street lighting. Although the city does not maintain most of the street lighting, we do have about $100,000 a year expenditure to fund PG&E maintenance of the street lighting. We have our one traffic signal in town that we maintain, and then we pay half the cost of the maintenance of the two Caltrans maintained signals at Highway 1 in San Jacinto and Highway 1 in Yerba Buena. And then also we perform maintenance on city street trees. Fairly limited maintenance when we are doing the work, mainly down branch removal and safety pruning, removal of hanging limbs, mainly for safety reasons is really the reason we prune. As far as general street maintenance, like I said, this is out of our current budget, and it's based on the 1920 and their unaudited amounts. As of when the budget were prepared, their estimated amounts for general street maintenance about $419,000, storm drain maintenance $162,000. Street lighting, $100,000, as I mentioned, and street tree maintenance, and then engineering and admin, anything from, preparation of this pavement management plan to keeping the lights on in City Hall, cutting paychecks, and all that overhead associated with, running an operation. Funding. Some of that money comes through gas tax, about $244,000 of that million or so expenditure. And then the rest of it comes from our various general fund sources. our capital improvement program, which is basically our pavement management program, comes from a variety of sources, and it varies by year. We get a small portion of the local transportation funding. It pays for our transit system. If we don't use it all for transit, it can be used for roads. CDBG, Community Development Block Grant money, typically that is only used for sidewalk and ADA improvements. There's a small set aside of that local transportation funding that is used for, we call it bike path, but it's for bike path, bike lane, striping, maintenance. So it's a 2% of the LTF is set aside for that. So not a large amount. Getting down to some of the larger sources of revenue, our SB1 or Senate Bill 1, the bill that was approved by the state a few years ago to fund maintenance and repairs and betterments of California's infrastructure. The city gets a formulaic allocation of that money based on population and area. It was estimated to be about $180,000 for this year. I don't think we'll see that full amount. I think we downgraded that estimate to about $150,000. Our half-cent sales tax, Measure Q, generally about half of that has been used for street projects, so about $500,000. Measure Q, as with many city revenues, have not been coming in as expected this year due to the pandemic-induced recession. So we won't see that full amount this year. Impact fees, we collect development impact fees, transportation impact fees for new development projects based on the square footage of new improvements. They cannot be used for maintenance. They can only be used for improvements. So let's say we needed to widen a street to increase the capacity, add lanes to a street. Impact fees could be used for that. And then grant funding, very limited amount of grant funding available for maintenance type activities. We have been successful every year in the rubberized asphalt grant. So it pays us to add either rubber to the asphalt or rubber to the liquid asphalts that's used for a slurry process. It accomplishes two things. Increases the life expectancy of that asphalt product, and then also is a way to get rid of used tires. So it's I believe it's a win-win program. Some of the priorities in our street maintenance activities include pothole repair for safety issues, our capital improvement projects for pavement management, ADA and sidewalk repair. So when we did get a large chunk of CDBG money, we did, you might remember our gap closure project where we had a couple $100,000 in CDBG money that Atascadero couldn't use in a timely basis, and we were able to spend that money. Now we're repaying the CDBG program, so we're not getting that money coming back in. So it was more of an advance, but that's where we mainly fund sidewalk repair from. Tree trimming, safety pruning, as I said, our sign and signal maintenance, storm drain repair and maintenance, roadway striping, and improvements as funding allows. Pavement management plan, why do we look at doing a pavement management plan? really it's to determine how we're going to do our preventive maintenance and repair of our city streets. It analyzes the pavement life cycles, assesses overall system performance and costs associated with those. It's really a tool for us to determine maintenance strategies and preparing cost estimates. Our first pavement management plan was prepared in-house and adopted by City Council in 2011. This pavement management plan update is really the first significant update to the plan, where we did a complete reinspection of all the streets. Some of the funding scenarios that are in that plan assume no street CIP for this previous fiscal year and this upcoming fiscal year. And we'll talk about a little bit more of that in just a couple slides. Some of the goals of the city's pavement management plan and program are to improve and maintain our average pavement condition. Our goal is to improve it to a 70 from our existing 66. That is aligned with the state of California's stated goal of achieving a minimum pavement or an average pavement condition of 70 statewide. Once a pavement condition index of 70 is achieved on average for the city, it allows greater flexibility in use of the SB1 funding, and it'll allow us to use some of that money, should the city choose, for betterments per se, to make improvements rather than using it for pavement maintenance. I think we've all seen this graph before, the typical pavement degradation curve here, where over the life of a pavement section, it goes from being in excellent condition to failure if you don't do anything. And the typical design life of most pavements are somewhere around 20, 25 years, although there are some cities that design for a 50-year pavement life. And if you can get that, perform maintenance activities before the pavement drops down into the lower section of the curve, you're spending much less per square foot than you are if you let it drop down to those lower sections. So maybe in the middle of the curve, you're maybe spending $1 a square foot or less to maintain that pavement condition, where if you let it drop down to a poor or very poor condition, you might be spending 6 to 14 times that, so $6 to $14 a square foot or more on pavement for reconstruction and major rehabilitation of streets. Pavement maintenance methodologies. This is an excerpt out of our pavement management plan that shows the various strategies for pavement maintenance. I've circled the two areas where we've been focusing on mainly for the past few years, basically a light and heavy maintenance and using sealing operations and really no overhaul or reconstruction or mill and fill type projects. Here we have another way of showing that cost of pavement rehab work on a more specific to this area as addressed in our pavement management plan, so less generically. So the first line item of crack seal is the only one that's in a different unit of measure. It's dollars per lineal foot of crack sealed. So fairly inexpensive activity to perform. And these are costs per square yard rather than cost per square foot. So it ranges from, light maintenance on a residential street, maybe, $3.79, where if you go to reconstruct a arterial street, maybe up to $210 a square yard. I think I said square foot on the light maintenance, but that's per square yard. The pavement management plan, like I said, reassessed all the city streets. And this graphic from the report gives a representation of ranging from basically excellent condition to poor condition. As you can see, it goes from green being very good or excellent to red being very poor conditions, and various shades in between. So, some of the focus areas, if you want to spend, fewer pavement dollars, would be to focus on kind of the blue and yellow areas to keep those from dropping down into the orange and red areas. And you'll see that in some upcoming slides. This is a different way to represent that pavement condition. So it's also showing functional class, and as you can see, there's some breakpoints where you really don't want pavement that's kind of near the bottom end of this range to fall into kind of the poor range, because the costs to maintain that are much higher. So that's what helps us use the pavement management plan as a tool for selecting projects. Another kind of spin on that same pavement condition. Here we're looking at pavement condition breakdown as a percent of the total, and really we're looking at a little over half of our streets in a good to excellent condition, where over half our streets are either fair or poor condition. We're going to look at the capital improvement program, what we've done in the past, and some pavement management plan scenarios, and then recommendations. We went back to our 2012 street work, because that was based on our 2011 pavement management plan. And as you can see, we have spent a fairly significant amount of work and the map shows by year which streets were worked on. Now, most of that work involved kind of the light and heavy maintenance, so sealing operations. So using an asphalt emulsion, either with chip or with sand in the case of microsurfacing, to preserve that asphalt. And we stretched the limits of that sealing operation. We did some streets with perhaps a triple layer that may have been served if we were looking at, restoring them back to their 25-year life with either a thin overlay or a reconstruction project, but really didn't have the resources and wanting to stretch those pavement dollars as far as possible to do that work. So, and then in 2013, 14, 15, 16, you can see that we started doing an every other year program to try to end up with larger projects we would maybe achieve better bid prices on, and basically came back in 1819 doing only a single year project. We weren't achieving those economies of scale. This is a excerpt from the current pavement management plan on expenditure scenarios, ranging from improving our overall pavement condition up to an average of 79. So a very, aggressive pavement management plan, which results in an expenditure of averaging about $4.3 million over years 2 through 5 of the plan, down to getting our pavement condition up to the 70-71 level, spending $3.9 million per year. Maintaining our existing pavement condition of the 66, need to spend about $2 million per year. If we look at what the average funding scenario that we have spent based on SB1 of almost $200,000, and the Measure Q at about $500,000, supplemented with that recycled rubber grant, about $700,000 total. We end up with dropping our pavement condition over 5 years to 60, and then the do nothing, don't spend anything. Our pavement condition over 5 years drops to 57 on average. As you well know, our 2019-20 street work was deferred due to the economic uncertainties and underperforming revenue sources in our Measure Q, our SB1, and our general fund. Using those Measure Q resources to fund more of the fixed costs that are funded by Measure Q, the public safety and fire components of debt service on the fire station, and adding that fourth full-time equivalency unit to respond to emergencies. What are we proposing? Should we do work in 2021? The work that we would propose to do is would have to be based on a positive revenue performance, and seeing that that Measure Q and that SB1 revenue coming in. And our Citizens Finance Advisory Committee review recommendation was, if there is insufficient revenue coming in, we should prioritize that Measure Q revenue for public safety. We'll take a look at this at mid-year. Should there be a project, our pavement engineering analysis. Associates, or excuse me, Pavement Engineering Incorporated, PEI, has recommended this what they're calling a stopgap project, and spending about a little over $600,000 on doing significant repairs, spot repairs basically on our arterial and collector street system. This will hopefully prevent further load-based deterioration. We're seeing, rutting, alligatoring, block cracking, base failures in these areas. Towards near the end of the pavement management plan document, you can see a draft plan set that identifies all those areas on their collector streets where we would be doing or proposing to put out to bid for this dig out, or what is known as a mill and fill operation, where you grind that pavement and then repave on top of it. After that, further years, we would assess those streets and look at those streets that are near the breakpoints in the pavement management plan, and select those streets for likely going back to a ceiling type operation and pavement preservation to continue to stretch that pavement dollar. That concludes my presentation on the pavement management plan, and we'll try to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, Rob. We'll open it up to the board members, and I'll just go down the line and let each board member take a turn at this. And as I mentioned before, when you have a question that's related to a specific page, please indicate the page number so that all the other board members and staff are able to know where you're at. Tori, I'm going to start with you this time, if that's all right.
Okay. Well, it's a terrific presentation, Rob. Really pulled in all the elements and made the report that you sent out earlier a lot more dynamic and clear. It's a lot of information to digest, so I don't really have any questions other than to say or ask. So given all that you've described and the different funding sources, particularly Measure Q and SB1 for improvements, what do you foresee in the next year or two as far as executing on, pavement improvement in Morro Bay, just generally speaking?
Well, I'm an engineer and not really an economist. I wish I could predict what we would see as far as economic return out of this kind of recessionary period that we're in, and seeing those revenues return to normal. We will be looking at our revenues come mid-year, which we will around February, to see if we have a better picture on how we're performing as far as sales tax and gas tax, and make recommendations at that point whether to proceed forward with the project. As maybe I didn't make this specifically clear, but pavement degradation doesn't stop just because we stop spending money on pavement repairs. It is going to continue kind of whether we like it or not, and not just due to traffic on the streets. It'll happen due to weathering, pavement drying out. The earth does not stay still. We'll have the underlying soil will absorb water and expand and then dry out and contract. So that flexible pavement will move around. We see that a lot on the kind of the west side of the highway in the beach tract area, where there is no base and really no drainage in those streets, and severe pavement deterioration in a lot of those streets there. So don't quite have my crystal ball working as far as what actually will happen, but we have a plan to look at the performance of our revenue sources at mid-year and bring that to council for decision at that point.
Okay, so you're saying it's really the critical factor is funding, and it's a revenue constrained pavement improvement plan due to basically the, like you said, COVID induced recession. Yes,
because as earlier in the slides, you can see that our gas tax revenue is our general gas tax revenue, not SB1, is absorbed and exceeded by just routine maintenance activities, the variety and sundry of activities that we perform on the streets. Just have one additional thing to add that didn't put a bullet point in the slide. Council did approve out of Measure Q expenditures $40,000 for asphalt materials, which allows our streets crew to do more patching than they normally would do. So Matt and his crews, when they do get that break in the weather and break in time when they're not picking up trash on the Embarcadero, will have money to buy hot mix asphalt at whatever the going price is now, $120 a ton, I think is what we're, or more, or what we're looking at for asphalt costs.
Okay. Okay, good. Thanks. I have no more questions. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Tori. Doug, do you have any questions? Are you ready to comment?
Yes. Hi. Thank you, Rob. This is excellent. Really great. And of course, I'm all for the great the wayfaring sign project. You know, to get those visitors that jam the Embarcadero on weekends to spend more money here in Morro Bay, so we can get some more, revenue. So Jan and I are working diligently. So anyway, to get more money for the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Doug. Jan, do you have any questions or comments at this time?
Thank you, Rob, for the presentation. It was really informative. But as far as the funding goes, out of the general fund, if in my rose-colored world things are going to get better and there's going to be more money and it's all going to improve. But whenever they figure the city figures the budget, does the amount that goes for your projects, for your road projects, is that a percentage based on a percentage of the budget? Can you figure that you're going to get like 30% of the money or whatever, or does that depend on other jobs? Is that always flexible every year depending on what other things come up?
It's based on what the council's priorities may be for any given year. And typically what let's say it's a good budget year, and Jen, interrupt me anytime that I get something on budgeting wrong. Council would set aside money for capital improvement projects in a capital reserve fund. We don't have that luxury of setting aside funding at the moment to fund that. So that's where we would draw upon for capital projects, and those capital projects would be based on council priorities. Typically, in past years, because of the self-imposed restrictions on the Measure Q funding, much of that money goes to street maintenance. So about half of it each year is dedicated towards street maintenance, because in the past we didn't have the funding to do that work. In the maybe prehistory or pre-Rob with Morro Bay, regional funding would help maintain our streets. So we would get an allocation of regional funding or funding that's made available from the state that's programmed by SLOCOG, our local planning agency, STIP funding, to help us maintain our collector and arterial streets. That stopped in the early 2000s. So we've been reliant on only local funds, with the exception of recently of SB1 to maintain our streets. So we rely on Measure Q and SB1 with a little bit of grant funding to do street maintenance. And then the general fund basically supports the more routine maintenance. So when somebody does a service request or calls Public Works that there's a pothole at Reno Court and Bonita Street, let's say, not that we've received any requests for potholes there, but we would prepare a work order. Matt would order 4 tons of asphalt and go over in our dump truck and pick up 4 tons of asphalt. And that asphalt would be funded through kind of our routine maintenance fund. And then those man hours would be funded out of that routine maintenance fund. Let's say Bonita was scheduled for a M2, a microsurfacing, a slurry seal. That money would be programmed out more out of the capital side and funded through our SB1 and Measure Q funding. I don't know if that answered the question or not.
More thoroughly than I expected. But another thing, Rob, then on this 1% sales tax, will that be going into the general fund? And so then it will just be, like you were just saying, it's doled out as the council sees need? You're not...
I'll let Jen weigh in on what the city's going to use that...
if it passes.
If it passes sales tax for.
Yeah, so the 1% sales tax measure is a general measure, which means it can be used for anything. There is not any prescription that it will go, a certain amount to public safety, a certain amount to roads, or anything like that. So we'll hold it in a separate fund just so we can report out to the community on what we did spend it on. It'll be very transparent, but it's available as it's written to be spent on any general fund service. So infrastructure, infrastructure needs, equipment, anything throughout, the general fund services.
And then back to the gas tax. How do we get it back, a percentage back based on our population or on how much gas is sold in Morro Bay, or how do they determine?
I saw Rob starting to speak, but yeah, it's based on the sales of gas tax in the city. So when COVID first hit, gas prices went really low. So we saw some reduced gas tax coming in. As gas prices increase, we see our tax revenue coming in higher from that.
And that's all handled through the state?
Yes. Well, it goes through, through the state.
Yeah, it comes back. Okay.
SB1 is handled a little bit differently, that portion of the gas tax. It's split half state, half city counties. And the city county half is split in half again, half for the counties, half for the cities. And then it's based on population, land area, amount of maintained streets in some overly complex formula that
somebody can figure out.
Somebody in the state controller's office maintains. So
then, specifically on Highway 41 and Main Street, you have a grant to pay for some of that, and some of the money's coming from the state or from the SLOCOG. I don't. How can the city possibly make up the rest?
So that project is somewhere around an $8 million intersection improvement project. If we go with the roundabout alternative, or on the signalization alternative, it's somewhere just shy of $6 million, although the signal doesn't have the capacity as long as the roundabout does. So Caltrans is recommending a roundabout there. As we've seen in the intersection control evaluation studies that we brought to PWEB maybe way too long ago.
Yeah, I think I was on the board then, but anyway.
Anyway, so back to funding.
Yeah.
We are cobbling together a variety of funding sources. What we're calling local funds is made up of our local discretionary funds. So there's a portion of the urban state highway account money that can be used for improvements that we're squirreling away for a project at 41 in Maine. We have some developer fees that were collected specific to that intersection that are set aside for that project. Not a huge amount, probably in the neighborhood of under $200,000. We have some general transportation impact fees that can be only, like I said, impact fees can only be used for betterments. And this is probably the number one impacted intersection in the city. So we would, if this project moves forward, we would dedicate those funds. SLOCOG has programmed regional funds, money that comes either from the federal government, our CMAQ funds or air quality funds, congestion management funds. So every time somebody stops and idles at that intersection, decreases air quality a little bit, so we can use these congestion management funds for that. We have a portion of those. We have a portion of STIP and a portion of state highway account funds. And then the last piece of funding is this ATP, Alternative Transportation Program grant application that we've applied for in the tune of $3.75 million that would bridge that funding gap should the city be successful in achieving that. Should we not be successful, we kind of have to rethink what we're going to do at that intersection with the funds available, or work with our funding partners to see if we can eke out more regional funds to deliver that project. In the short term, I'm not sure where like you said, where we would find local funding to bridge that gap, because there are many draws on that local funding sources.
Okay, but you make it sound like with your other sources that there is a possibility that it can be completed at some point in the not really distant future.
If it's not completed in the near distant future, likely some of those regional funds may be reprogrammed to other priority projects in the region.
Okay. Thanks, Rob.
Is that it, Jan?
That's it.
Okay, now we'll go to John. Do you have anything?
I'm sure John has lots for me.
Yeah, John.
Oh, yes, I do. I have many.
Yes, I'm sure.
First thing that popped up, assuming that, the heavy trucks, i.e. garbage trucks, cause the majority of deterioration of residential streets. So say $2 million a year maintaining those residential streets, say 1.6 million of that caused by garbage trucks. Do we get any money from the franchise fees for the garbage collection applied for?
Yeah, not dedicated towards street maintenance. We do receive a franchise fee for that work. One might argue that if our streets would have been constructed as streets, they would be able to handle the load of a garbage truck on them. No?
Yeah, it's still the majority of deterioration is caused by the garbage trucks, and whether they're properly constructed or poorly constructed, like a lot of our streets are.
Yeah. No, we don't have any dedicated garbage revenue. And if the garbage company were paying for that, it would likely come out of garbage rates.
I understand that. But what I'm saying is, as a potential source of funding, at least for the city council to understand, that is when we don't collect enough franchise fees from the garbage company, we're going to be paying for it anyway in the basis of, say, $1 million a year just to fix the deterioration caused by trucks. And so also, I know we're not going to charge the fire department, but there probably ought to be a little bit of tracking of fire trucks, they got to go where they got to go, but we ought to track the deterioration caused by the fire trucks. So city council is aware of it when they're dealing with that. And then construction permits too is be another source of funds, because when you do a demo thing, you're going to be bringing some heavy trucks, but not like fire trucks or garbage trucks. What is the present day cost of deferring the maintenance for I guess it's 2 years we're going to defer all maintenance, is that right?
Yes.
So for 1.4 million, what's the present day cost of that deferral going to be? Don't have to answer me right now, but that would be interesting.
I would need to likely run that model to get the present day costs of that. Roughly looking at the kind of the scenarios to kind of maintain on an even keel, we need to spend about $2 million a year to kind of stay where we're at as far as pavement condition goes. And spend $700,000 a year to, as I think one of our former city managers said, pave the deck chairs on the Titanic as we slowly sink below the surface. Because we'll see a slow decline in pavement conditions, slower than spending nothing, but a slow decline in pavement conditions. But I can run that model, and then in the next director's report, we'll have a little update that talks about those scenarios.
Okay. Another question which popped up was, so, we had budgeted, $600,000 in Measure Q for 2019
About that, yeah.
And so that hasn't been spent. I asked Jen, would any of that be available for some stopgap maintenance to prevent things from really going south? And so, in looking at your thing there, I see that you have thought about that. On page 5 of I guess it's page 22 of the agenda. You had some costs, and I noticed that, I don't think crack sealing in our city is worth anything. I mean, you get 2 cracks down a street there, and you might as well just give it a good fog seal. But I don't know.
We do perform crack sealing before that that M2 and chip seal maintenance overlay, just to, especially on the larger cracks, to basically so we're not putting so much slurry into those cracks to kind of bridge that amount, that area. So we self-perform that. So we will rent a piece of equipment and buy the materials. So these costs are more for having a contractor do it. With our own forces, we probably do it for half that amount.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a worthwhile thing then. What are the actual range of prices for? I'm looking at page 22. What's the actual range of light maintenance costs? I see $740. Like, is that the medium or is that the high end? Or because you got according to this light maintenance, slurry seal or microsurface, fog seal or scrub seal. What is the actual ranging cost on those things? Because they don't cost the same.
No, that's kind of an average cost. We've seen, some of our ceilings costs come in as, low as, 60 cents a square foot on some of that. When you're getting up into kind of that scrub seal or, light chip seal, we really haven't done any of the scrub seals, or mainly microsurfacing is what we're doing here. So probably around, if we're using square yardage, probably about $6 a square yard of what our last bid prices were on M2.
So these numbers are low ball then?
Yeah.
Okay. And then heavy maintenance?
They include all-in costs. So, if you were just doing an M2 project and had to pay for mobilization, you might pay a little bit more. And it would likely depend on the volume of work that you have for a contractor to do.
But that's why it did this last time.
Yeah.
Okay. Heavy maintenance, same question. So 3187, what is that assuming? Is that the thin overlay, less than 2-inch overlay?
Thin overlay, like I said, we haven't done thin overlays in years here. We've been mainly focusing on chip, cape, and triple layer sealing, and we're probably talking in the neighborhood of $1 to $2, or $1 to $1.50 a square foot, or somewhere around, $27 to $35 a square yard for that work.
Okay. On page 23, I was kind of looking at the curves there, and just looking at my street, Las Vegas, which is, we get a garbage truck a day from the restaurant down at the corner. But 2015, we did the chip seal here. And I would, the surface is smooth. A lot of the weathering has not been happening since you guys came through there. And then I see the report says we're in poor condition, so I'd have some suspicions about that thing there. But the road is actually performing a lot better than when I first moved here in 2013. So it just, I have some questions about, how representative some of the survey information they have is. But also, yeah, like I say, if a street gets a garbage truck a day down it, where does that usually put it on the collector, or minor collector thing there? I know this is, I know the other streets around here, all you get are cars, and where I'm living, we get the garbage truck coming down after they pick up the stuff from Maya. So I'm just wondering how you guys define collector.
What we're using is what came out of the city's circulation element that was submitted to the state and got put on the state street system. So we really haven't looked at a definition for collector arterial local streets. We're using that predefined definition, not looking at redefining that as of yet, but basically, a collector street serves several local streets. An arterial serves multiple collectors, is kind of the general transportation engineering loose definition of collector, arterial, and local streets. But we're using what exists from previous planning documents for definition. John, I think you're muted. I don't think we can unmute you, John. You came back now.
No.
Cool. I don't know what happened.
Okay.
Okay. So I had a question of what the PCI for the city was, and the report said 80, or it looked like it was 80, but we actually work on a target of 70. Is that right?
So the goal that was adopted by council previously was to meet the state's goal of 70 average PCI.
So that's a little bit different from what the report mentioned. So that was on page 23. PCI seems to be, like I said, the PCI seems to be improved somewhat from what I've seen around here since the pavement management started in 2015 or 2014. So this is just apocryphal type stuff looking there, but I can see the streets are performing much better than they were when I first came to town. The alligator cracking description I see in the report doesn't match what I understood alligator cracking was. It's basically, the little pieces of the alligator usually reflect the total competent subgrade or pavement section you have, and as things deteriorate, the alligatoring pieces get smaller and smaller, and that's what I understand. That didn't make sense to me what I read in the report. That was on page 30, where it talked about definitions. Page 41. We talked about the range of costs for various light maintenance, heavy maintenance, and heavy rehab. We don't do light rehab very often, do we?
No, we don't. Have not done really any overlay work. I think the last overlay work we did was 2009 on Morro Bay Boulevard and 2011-ish on Main Street with some ERA funding.
Okay, and I know Bonita had some serious heavy improvements done to it just from, I guess, from when the fire station was installed there. Things were beefed up a little bit there, but I don't know too much about that. That was before my time. Page 43. So our target is 70. So at the bottom of light maintenance. So that's the goal, is to get the most we can and then do light maintenance to improve the quality of the street. Is that the goal for our program?
Ideally, that's what we would be doing, is trying to keep what this graphic is trying to show is, those breakpoints between the various methods, and to keep from going to dropping to that next level. For example, where it has a PCI of 50, really you're looking at going from a maintenance activity to a rehab activity if you let it drop below a PCI of 50, let's say. And you would want to, before a street got to 50, do some heavy maintenance. Same thing true with that 70. Keep doing light maintenance to keep it above 70 and not let it drop below, where you're going to be spending those higher dollar amounts on more heavy maintenance. Of course, it is all a balancing act. You wouldn't want to go every year or every couple of years doing light maintenance on a street and spending those dollars where it may be more cost effective to look at a light rehab work, let's say every 10 years, where back in my prehistory, you would look at a slurry 5 years, 10 years you might look at an overlay, 20 years major rehab work is kind of the life of pavement. And
that was my training too. So, okay. What's the difference between non-load and load maintenance issues? Page 43.
So load-based issues would be, for example, something that started out as some, rutting in a wheel track, where non-load would be due to maybe underlying soil conditions, where you're getting some heave, soil expansion that's causing the pavement to deteriorate due to expansion and contraction of, for example, the expansive clay soils.
Okay. And then, so it's whether, it's weathering or just deterioration, or actually the traffic load is
correct,
breaking it down. Okay. You might want to throw on somebody's list and the south end of Elm Street at Bonita. There's a very interesting, I'm not sure if it's just things heaving or if it's a pothole or what, but there's about a 8x12 area where the pavement is doing some really bizarre stuff there. And okay. I think it's because that the roads there are so steep there that people hit it and the tires kind of jackhammer the pavement there, because it goes from a steep slope to a less than 1% slope.
Not unlike the garbage trucks shoving that asphalt as they.
The garbage trucks are very likely the primary cause of the thing there, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So, but to fix that thing, you're going to have to dig it out and actually reprofile it in order to avoid what's going on there. Okay. Well, I think got my questions answered. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John. Only have a couple little things. Do you know how much our garbage franchise amounts are every year? A ballpark figure? I know Jen will have that right at her fingertips.
No, I don't.
I do have that at our fingertips. In 1920, so the fiscal year we just closed, we had about $252,500. The year prior to that, it was about $232,000.
Oh. Wow.
Okay, I know. I've often felt that a percentage of the garbage franchise should be a dedicated amount to the streets. I know basically it all goes into general fund right now and then is distributed as the council desires. But I would like the council sometime to look at the idea that because many people feel that is a major impact on the streets, that the council should consider at least a significant portion of that being dedicated to pavement management. So I'd like to pass that on to you.
Can I just add to that? So it does go in the general fund, you're absolutely correct. With that, we have a street maintenance program in the general fund that's part of Public Works and Consolidated Maintenance, but it's pulled out as a separate, activity in the funds. We could track expenditures on street maintenance. Our gas tax auditors will audit that. And to give some context, our budget for street maintenance for fiscal year 1920, the year we just closed, we spent almost $90,000 in the street maintenance department. That's lower than in previous years because of COVID and some of the cuts we made. So the year before that, it was closer to $430,000, about $427,000. So even though we don't directly link the garbage franchise fees to the street programs, it is helping to fund, those expenditures.
All right, thank you. One thing that I often hear from people in looking at the pavement report is that pretty much the good streets, and we've seen the reason why, the arteries and collector streets get the maintenance in order to keep them at the higher level. And then a lot of the residential streets, they wonder, are my streets ever going to be fixed? If they report a pothole, the individual potholes, but looking at, like a 5-year plan, the residential streets are always, basically the last ones to get done. And that's the ones that the individual residents have to drive on every day. And I don't see a solution for it without somebody donating, a few $100 million to us for street improvements. But I think that's something that should be brought up and explained when when council makes their decisions on this. How is this going to impact, our long-range plan to get all of the residential streets that need a coating? They say, my street out here hasn't been repaved in, 10, 15 years, yet they're going to pave Main Street again, something like that. So I just think that's a part of the conversation that needs to be brought up and discussed. I know there is no solution unless there's a lot of money. So I just wanted to bring that point up. If there's no other immediate questions by the board, then we'll open this up to public comment. And again, on public comment, if somebody has a comment, use the raise your hand symbol if you're on Zoom, and use the *9 if you're on telephone. And Zeke, if you could look at the people that are on telephone. I know a little while ago, Doug's icon disappeared. He was on telephone, so you could see if his number is in there anywhere. I'm not sure whether he intentionally dropped out or whether he's going to be coming back, but I'm not sure if you are able to identify him or not.
Mr. Chair, I have one person in the queue and their number is ending in 128. That's all the information I can give you. There's nobody with their hands raised. They are unmuted, so maybe they are able to talk.
That's Doug.
There you go.
Okay. So there are no public comment people to speak at public comment, so we will close public comment and bring it back to the board. Are there any final comments by staff or questions by the board before we move along with this?
I'd like to add one thing. I took a quick stab at the numbers. If we made garbage trucks, if we charged enough for garbage collection we'd be adding about $20 a month to a typical. If we got 5,000 people, that would be $20 a month to cover the damage the deterioration that's caused by the garbage trucks.
Okay. Seeing no other comments or questions by the board, we'll go ahead and close this item. We've made various comments, so Rob and Jen can add that to their presentation to the City Council on the management update final report.
Yeah, I would just add, Rob, your comments were good and to be recommended to the board or the council.
Okay.
So thank you, Rob.
And then I'm going to bring back.
I mean, Rick. Sorry. Your comments, Rick, I thought were good. That just there's this sort of equity issue in terms of residential streets versus arterial and feeder streets. That is going to be kind of an equity issue in terms of if we have to cut back on the pavement management plan, that should be explained and discussed at the general council level.
Thank you. So you don't need a motion from us on moving this forward, is that correct?
No, and my Zoom locked up just for a second there. But what I was going to say was I'm also going to bring back in the director's report next time a little update when we rerun the model and come up with the impact of no work for 2 years and what that means to present day value.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along, we're going to move to item C, which is board members' concerns and interest. So back in the olden days, there was a period where the city council would have joint meetings with the various advisory boards, where the advisory boards in their entirety would sit down with the city council, and they'd go back and forth talking about their concerns and their interests. The city council would let us know what their thoughts were, and various board members would be able to express their ideas. And then it sort of morphed into where just the chair would appear before the city council and give sort of a status report and concerns, and we would listen to what the council had to say. And now that even that's gone away, and now we're into even less sort of communication with Zoom. So there's been interest to talk about what is our function, what will we deal with on the board. We only have limited staff with us, and as I mentioned at the last meeting, a lot of times the agenda is based on need and staff time and costs that are involved with staff reports. There's hundreds of things that people would like to see accomplished in the city dealing with public works. So I would like to, have this time. This is strictly a bring up your ideas and concerns. There's no action that's going to be required or even allowed. So I'm going to first turn it over to Doug. He's sort of the person that's initiated, trying to express interests that he believes that the board should be addressing, or that staff should be addressing. And so, Doug, are you ready? Is that you, Doug, on the phone there? Not hearing anything yet.
Darn.
Zeke, do you know whether that's whether that is Doug or not?
It seems to be. I'm going to ask him to unmute.
Okay. Looks like it just muted, so
Yeah.
maybe he was just not able to get through because it looks like it's muted now.
Yeah. There he is.
Doug.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry. Forgive me. Okay. Thank you very much, Rick. And yes, of course, we've talked about these things. And what can I say? I mean, as far as I know, the minutes, we don't have August minutes. We're going to have them. Janine said, she'll do them together with September, and we'll have them. But apparently, City Council doesn't even get our minutes at all. And they have to look them up if they want to. So we don't really have a whole lot of, even though we are interested citizens and concerned about these issues, and we do receive really excellent reports from Rob and Joe. Really, it's excellent. But our input is really not received by the City Council per se directly, even though we're dealing with very important issues. And I don't know what we can do about it other than continue to be concerned citizens and make our comments heard. I've mentioned the seagulls and the trash and the wayfaring signs to try to generate more tax revenue. And of course, in the long term, it would be nice to have a 5 or 10-year work plan for what are we going to do about homeless people, because they're definitely here in our community and they are impacting our community. So that's all my comment is, you know, it's great that we have this communication with the city officials, and I think they're doing a great job. So I just wish there was some way we could really have a city work plan, which of course I've been asking for, and perhaps it may come again. What you described, Rick, as the sitting with the council chair, you know, I think, you know, it'd be nice if that would happen again. So I would just advocate for that. And thank you. That's my comment.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Jan, do you have any concerns or interest items that you feel that the board should be dealing with or the staff should be dealing with that is not occurring yet? You're muted right now. Yeah, okay.
No, I can't think of any right off. I guess I'm on a lot of committees and I hear a lot of talk, so I feel like things are being said, but seeing them carried out always is not as easy as I would like it to be, but I guess that's true of everything. You have a lot of people to deal with, a lot of issues, like the money, the different opinions for or against. I mean, if I could just say, if everything could just be done my way, it'd be great. but no, I'm okay.
All right. Thank you, Jan. John, do you have anything that you would like the people to bring up?
Yeah, it'd be nice to see, you know, what's the wish list for improvements to the roads and the capital improvement plans and stuff like that on it. And then if I had a chance, I would throw onto that list for a wish list thing there, you know, on the north end of town, the only really huge safety issues I've seen there, other than, you know, you've got the turning circles in San Jacinto, and then the other idiots driving at 60 and stuff like that on Main Street in San Jacinto. But it'd be nice if there was pedestrian bridges over Toro Creek and over Ann Paul Creek. So, you know, I wouldn't say, you know, something similar to what's over next to your house, Jan, one of those small prefabricated steel bridges type stuff. That would eliminate a lot of the conflicts between cars and pedestrians on the north side.
All right, thank you, John. And Tori, do you have any things that you believe the PWAB board or the staff should be addressing?
Was that to me, Rick?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I guess I would emphasize Doug.
You're breaking up.
And also your point. Okay, sorry. Can you hear me better here?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to reiterate what Doug said, and also what you said, Rick, too, that it would be nicer to have the city council have more communication between what we do at PWAB with city council. And I sometimes feel like my only recourse, well, as I'm still learning this particular position on PWAB, I'm not always sure how what we do on PWAB funnels into the discussions at the city council. I've kind of come to the conclusion that I just need to show up at city council meetings and as an independent citizen and speak out there. It would be nice, though, to have what you described, Rick, as a regular meeting with city council between PWAB board and the city council, or the chair of the board with city council, or something like that, or some kind of channel. But as Jan mentioned too, that, you know, there's a lot of committees and boards, and it takes a lot of time to do all this talking. So that's not always the efficient way to do it. But sometimes I'm concerned that we're in a silo here, and city council is in their silo or something too. So, but I don't have the solution for it either, other than to say that it can be. I wish there was a better communication.
Okay, thank you, Tori. And I guess my only desire of, when we have staff time and when we have the ability to do it, I would like to see a focus on waste in general, especially education. I believe the Integrated Waste Management Board tends to be the go-to person for recycling information. I've always believed that the garbage company should be a lot more involved in the education aspect, since they're the ones that pick everything up and haul it away. But it seems, that it just isn't getting out there anymore. At least I don't see where recycling education and garbage education is out there in the public. So if sometime in the future, when we have all the time in the world, I would like to, get the board, the staff, Integrated Waste Management, and the garbage company all sort of together and, be able to discuss who's doing what and how that can be improved. Because I go down the street and I see, all sorts of things sticking out of the recycle bins. And I know people have, pretty much no idea how to do, how to recycle. I've taken tours of the with the Integrated Waste Management out at the dump and the recycling center a few years ago. So I see it as a critical issue, and sometime I would like to see that addressed by our board. So any other questions or concerns by the board members? And I don't know if staff wants to make any comments on what they've heard this evening.
Let me just say quickly, I second your motion, Rick. I think the recycling practices here in Morro Bay, hinge on the garbage franchise and integrated management back in SLO. And if that could be, that really needs to be more integrated, and education outreach and that kind of thing would be a great thing to have. I think right now too, with the sort of the global collapse of the recycling industry, with China now not retaking a lot of the USA stuff, that there's quite a kind of a crisis right now in that industry that, it's an important thing to deal with, and we should be dealing with that here on the ground in Morro Bay.
Thank you, Tori. Jen, it looks like you turned on, so would you like to make a comment?
Yeah, I think, thank you for you guys sharing your thoughts on what you'd like to look at. I took some notes here. Also being responsible with the CFAC committee, I will say that the level of interaction with council is very similar. And I think that's the same with all of our boards. So there's a council representative that's, probably watching at home right now. Sometimes they watch after the fact if they can't, but the council representatives typically do watch your meetings. And I know, for CFAC and the same for Public Works for your board, if there's something that you raise as an issue, for example, with the pavement management plan, when we go to council, we would share that with them. We always indicate that it's been presented to, either CFAC or PWAB or whatever board it is. And, any comments or direction that the board has offered to the council for consideration. If there's comfort in this committee making a formal motion and providing, language that you'd like us to include in reports on topics like that, we can do that. That's what my CFAC board does when they review, the Measure Q budget, for example. They make a formal motion and we just include that language in the staff report that goes to council. And if there's comfort in having that, that's certainly something we can do. As for the items that you don't typically talk about, trash, and for instance, being one of them, or the wayfinding, perhaps the council will be having a goal setting session, and I think it would be really important to tie your work plan items with council identified goals, so that staff's direction is all in the same alignment as we proceed forward. And I think the goal setting session will be at the beginning of the year after the new council is seated, after the election. So those are open sessions, and you'd be welcome to come. And perhaps, we will certainly share the items that we've heard with our city manager, so he's aware of that going into the goal session. I would just caution, and this is just, cautionary. I know wayfinding has been discussed extensively in community development and on that side of the house. I believe the chamber was involved in those discussions as well. I think the design has been picked and the signs were about to be ordered, and then COVID hit. So I think we just put that on pause, not knowing if that would be the best use of funds at the moment or not. And I'm not sure that wayfinding necessarily would fall under the realm here, but that's not to say it can't. So I just wanted to give a little bit of history on that.
All right. Thank you, Jen. If there's no other comments, then we'll close this item, and thank you for everybody contributing and expressing your thoughts. So now we'll go to item D, which is future agenda items. Do we see what agenda items might be on our October meeting? And if you don't have anything, we can always talk garbage.
Let's talk garbage. Talk trash. I don't have anything.
So, Jen or Rob, do we have anything that we know will be on, or is that all up in the air right now?
Likely a WRF item to discuss the next set of potential change orders that would be going to council. So we'll be going over the technical review of those change orders and getting your input on those.
Okay.
All right, thank you. With that, then no other items on the agenda. We will move for adjournment, and our next regular meeting will be held on October 21st, 2020 at 5:30, again, as a teleconference. Thank you, everyone, staff and board members and public.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good
night.
Have a good night.
Good night.
night.